Troops fighting in the unit that many of you will lead are capable, truly physically capable of doing what is necessary under fire. They need to be fit, not fat, sharp, not shabby, especially our leaders. And that's why we're reviewing how the department has maintained standards in the past, especially the last 4 years, and whether those standards have dropped. Eliminating quotas, ensuring recruitment, retention, and promotions are based on performance, not immutable characteristics. DEI is dead at DOD.
Pilsner Pete Hegseth is making things so streamlined and merit-based at the Defense Department, he's eliminating foreign entities of having to go through the trouble of spying on us, because he's just handing the information over on his personal phone instead.
Now we know about this second chat that in fact was created by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. He included family members, his wife and his brother, some of his close friends, including his personal attorney. But what we have now learned, Nicole, is that, in fact, the information that Secretary Hegseth got actually came directly from the commanding general of U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla. He is the one who's responsible for the Middle East. Part of his area of operations includes Yemen. So he was the overall combatant commander for the area where these strikes were about to begin. He sent detailed information via a classified system to Secretary Hegseth. Nicole, minutes later, just a few minutes later, Secretary Hegseth took some of that information, some of it word for word, and put it into that chat on Signal, an unclassified messaging app, put some of that specific information in. And then what we've also learned now is that, in fact, he also put some of that information, again, some of it word for word, into the chat that included his family members and some of his friends. One of the talking points that we have heard from the very beginning from Secretary Hegseth is that none of the information here was classified, but the fact that it was transmitted to him from the combatant commander on a classified system really calls that claim into question.
It doesn't get much clearer than that. The direct information that was shared to Hegseth by the commanding general of Central Command was given to Pete's wife, his brother, and personal attorney. So, as if we didn't already know it, it's time to put to bed the discussion of whether or not the information was classified or not.
We know that according to what The Atlantic put out, that had the types of platforms, specific times they would be taking off, specific times they would be dropping bombs, and critically, the fact that the mission was a go, that means it had been approved, that would generally be considered among the most sensitive information in the U.S. military because lives could be put at risk. And what we also know, Nicole, is that just in the past couple of days, the Houthis have shot down another U.S. MQ-9 drone. What that means is the Houthis continue to contest the airspace over Yemen. The reality is they would have a hard time shooting down an F-18, but they have shot down more than a dozen drones in the last several months. That means the airspace is dangerous. You had manned aircraft that were flying into Yemen to conduct these strikes. If that information had gotten out, it could have directly put their lives in risk, not to mention compromising this mission.
They can't even claim there's no reason to worry about the airspace where the mission took place, because drones have actively been shot down there. The walls would normally be closing in on someone as clownish as this guy, but they've eliminated DEI and replaced it with a guy whose only qualification is his extreme stupidity and refusal to take responsibility for his screw-ups. Just like the president.
They haven't seemed to really acknowledge using a platform like Signal to share information. They argue it's not classified. We've heard other people say attack plans are classified. I just wonder what you mean and what you see in terms of how that's been handled.
Yeah, it has not been handled well. I mean, we got to be honest about this. Clearly, the information that was broadcast on Signal was classified. Now, they weren't war plans, and I think this is a little bit of the nuance of the wording. Secretary Hegseth has said we haven't divulged war plans. Well, war plans in a military context, as you know, Caitlin, this is the plan to invade Iraq or something broad and strategic like that. But make no mistake about it, these were operational plans with operational details. They were classified. But you'll also recognize that there was not a single uniformed person on any of those Signal chats, because I have no doubt that had there been a military officer on those chats, they would have said, Mr. Secretary, it's a bad idea using this. We need to go to our secure network to be able to talk.
And that's why Hegseth keeps going on TV to claim that they didn't divulge war plans, because by definition, these were operational plans. They don't think anyone will point out that they're just playing a game of semantics with people that are much smarter than they are. It's why their best defenders are people like Byron Donalds.
Does this not bother you at all?
Look, first of all, let's lay out a couple things. Pete Hegseth has been on the job, 6 weeks now, just about. They're going through the Department of Defense, obviously trying to find inefficiencies, making sure there are not legacy staffers and political appointees at DOD who, to be frank with you, are opposed to the agenda of President Trump. This happens all the time when you have transitions in government. You have holdovers from previous administrations who do not share the vision that the president has. And so Pete Hegseth is trying to reorganize DOD and get it up to snuff, because let's not sit here and act like DOD was doing a bang-up job under the previous administration.
Byron doesn't even know what he's talking about. Those staffers that he claims were legacy holdovers from Biden's time in office that don't share the same goals as Trump have been working with Hegseth for a decade. They were brought on with him and are speaking out about how much they support Trump and Hegseth's goals.
Darren Selnick and Colin Carroll are patriots. Darren's another person that worked with Secretary Hegseth for over a decade. He is somebody who's spent decades working around veterans and military health issues. He played a key role in ripping out woke and DEI nonsense from the administration. Darren was a key driver of that. I wanted to try and hide this from my mom as long as possible because I was worried. She's a worrier. I love her to death. She's a saint. I didn't want to tell her. Then an hour later, somebody leaked to Reuters describing exactly what had happened to me. And then 6 hours later, they pulled the same stunt with Darren, and then 12 hours later, they pulled the same stunt with Colin. And so, it's been devastating, and it's caused a lot of stress to my family. Just one thing I want to say is I've been a friend and supporter of Pete Hegseth for a long time, and I'm just personally devastated by this.
Byron doesn't even know that one of the fired scapegoats to cover Hegseth's ass, Dan Caldwell, went on Tucker's show and talked about how much he loves Hegseth and Trump, and that they believe in their practice of eliminating anyone that's not a straight Christian white guy from the ranks. But Donalds kept going with his standard of barking talking points without any information.
Number two, nobody was saying a word when Lloyd Austin, the previous defense secretary, disappeared for a month. Nobody could find him. But you want to talk about nobody could get a memo signed by the chief of staff for 3 weeks?
Hold on, Byron.
This is not even
Byron,
this is not even the same type of story. This is
It
not even the
isn't
same
fair
type
to
of story.
say
Let's be
nobody is
perfectly
saying
honest.
a word. So you think that the defense secretary, the former defense secretary under Biden, going to the hospital for treatment, not telling the president, admitting that he did not tell the president, although there was someone that was heading at the time, is an equal thing to somebody who is giving out information to his wife, who does not have a security clearance, to his lawyer, to his brother, on a personal cell phone on a Signal chat, which he's already been, looked at for doing that with a whole bunch of folks from the administration. You're equating those two things. Do you think those are the same things? And you're okay with Pete Hegseth and what he did, but not okay with what Lloyd Austin did?
I'm not equating those two things. I think
You
that
just
Secretary
did.
Austin not being around, not even tell. Well, let me finish my statement. I'm not equating them.
No, I don't think Byron knows what the word equating means. He just brought up Lloyd Austin leaving for treatment without telling Biden as a whataboutism to dismiss the security breaches and playing loose with classified information that Hegseth has been engaging in. He did it again right after claiming that he didn't.
I'm saying that when Secretary Austin was not around, he was in the hospital. I'm glad that he's better. I'm glad he's healthy, but he disappeared. The president at the time did not know where he was. Nobody knew where he was. That is significantly worse than the situation that you're talking about, especially when we're actually having a conversation about an allegation against Secretary Hegseth and ignoring the job happening at DOD right now, where recruitment is up amongst our fighting forces. Morale is up amongst our fighting forces. That's what we should be focused on, not new allegations because CNN and other news medias want something to talk about.
Listen, man, these guys gaslight everyone so much, they end up gaslighting themselves and don't even realize it. It's a movement full of fakers that don't know the first thing about their jobs, so they prioritize selling the illusion that they do. That's why Hegseth, the guy that's harping on refocusing on warfighters, is requesting a makeup studio to be installed in the Pentagon. You can imagine the hateful and misogynistic things they'd say about Lloyd Austin if he had put a makeup studio in the Pentagon. But when Hegseth orders modifications to a room next to the Pentagon press briefing room to be retrofit with a makeup studio that can be used to prepare for television appearances, it's not a big deal. The price tag for the project was several $1,000s, which isn't a lot, but at a time when the administration is identifying non-existent cost-cutting measures, they'd be pulling their hair out. Right before going on TV to try to explain away their incompetence, because Hegseth hasn't used the press room to brief reporters, but it has been a set for his TV appearances, including one with Fox this week, in which he blamed the media and former Defense Department employees for the revelation about him sharing operational details with his wife and brother. This embarrassing appearance.
We haven't backed down. See, here's the thing. A lot of people come to Washington and they just play the game. And it's you punch their ticket and get along to go along. And, start doing Meet the Press and going to the Council on Foreign Relations and spending time with all the new cocktail sipping crowd. That's not why I'm here. I'm here because President Trump asked me to bring warfighting back to the Pentagon every single day. Right. That is our focus. And if people don't like it, they can come after me. No worries. I'm standing right here. The warfighters are behind us. Our enemies know they're on notice. Our allies know we're behind them. And that, in this dangerous world, for the American people is what it's all about.
So the guy that installed a makeup room in the Pentagon for press appearances is bobbing around on Fox News with his old buddies on Fox to claim that everyone else is trying to get in the cocktail sipping crowd in D.C. and have appearances on Meet the Press. This guy's such a train wreck. One of the biggest apologists for this administration had some advice for him when it comes to the desire to get in front of a camera.
Yeah, I have some public relations advice for these folks. If I were Secretary Hegseth, I wouldn't do any more media interviews right now. The best way to prove you can do the job is to do the job. And by the way, with the attacks on the Houthi rebels, the recruitment being up in the military, there are aspects of his job that are going quite well. He needs to focus on that and just get a handle on doing the job. The media piece, leave it aside for the moment.